I need support staff to clear the room. Stand up and walk, now!
Hello, and welcome to The Watch. My name is Chris Ryan. I am an editor at TheRinger.com, and joining me in the studio, the market is down, but his investment in the Stone Roses' second coming is long. It's Andy Greenwald!
Is there Stone Roses back?
Yeah, man. Did you watch Severance?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yes, of course. I thought, here's how out I am. I thought that
Out on Severance or out on life and remembering things?
For some reason, I was like, wait, I watched the Grammys last night. Did I miss the long MasterCard commercial where the Stone Roses reformed? I got really excited. And I was like, I'm sorry, Chris, that I'm spending my weekend checking out what's going on at the border. So maybe I'm not up on Britpop Reformation news.
Were you literally up at the Canadian border, overseeing syrup coming in? Yeah.
No, I was just seeing if Sloan was reforming.
It's great to see you.
God, wow, you really threw me. This
I'm
is
a little
good.
worried about you because I was like, we're going to talk about Severance. And you were like, I watched that on Friday. As if that was in 1974 that you checked out the last episode of Severance.
I live hard and I live loud. You know what I mean? I'm ready.
How are you doing, man? What a weekend for LA.
Yeah, I'm reeling from that.
From the Luka Doncic trade?
Yeah, I know people on this podcast love hearing me be out on things. Out on basketball.
Okay.
Completely. But
you reserve the right to get back in.
No, but genuine shock is kind of at a premium outside of page 1 of the New York Times these days. So that Luka trade was wild. How many people, don't flatter me and say it was just me, how many people texted you Saturday night and said, was Shams hacked?
I think there was a brief moment of this is a really crazy, did something happen to his Twitter? Yes, there was a brief second of that, but I actually found out about this. I was going to see the film Companion, which I recommend.
Wondered what you saw Saturday
night. It was quite good. I went and saw it at the Vista Theater in Los Angeles, and I believe the last time I had gone to the Vista Theater was also I went to go see Longlegs, and that was the day Trump got shot. So every time I go to the Vista, something crazy happens.
Whoa.
Yeah.
When are you going to go next?
I don't know.
Is prior to the assassination attempt, was prior to that the weirdest thing that ever happened when you went to the Vista, the time one or both of us fell asleep watching Captain Marvel on a Sunday night before we were going to podcast about it the next day?
No, I did not fall asleep, did I?
I don't remember. I feel like it was close. It was close.
It's great to see you. Do you want to talk a little bit about the Grammys? I was just so delighted that you were watching that last night. I was not, but
finger on the pulse over here.
I want to hear everything about it, man.
No, you don't.
I know who won. Yeah. But with the Grammys, I'm just I'm just not the biggest pop music follower anymore. So
it's really interesting as a cultural shift. And I don't feel like we need to get on here and be like, well, things used to be better. Although, come on, these things did used to be better. I mean, there were some nice, exciting moments. I'm a big Doechii guy. Yeah. It was awesome.
Yeah.
I also didn't know, because I like her mixtape a lot, had never seen her perform. Did you check out any of this performance?
I'd seen some YouTube videos of her performing, so I got the vibe.
I didn't know she was a theater kid like
I
everyone
saw her
else.
on Tiny Desk, and I saw her do other shows.
The theater kids are ascendant.
Yeah.
That is just a thing. Everything is theater now, and that's fine as someone who trod the boards a bit in high school. Oh my gosh. Shout out Guys and Dolls, circa March 95. But I thought she was awesome. Also, the other reason for watching it is that my daughters love these pop stars of the present moment.
You are a father of daughters.
My older daughter was like, "Can I tell you some of my favorite musical artists?" the other day, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm really excited. Is Jandek going to make the list? Where are we?" And she was like, she's like, Taylor Swift. I was like, yeah, I know. And she's like, not in any order. I'm like, okay, cool. And she's like,
which daughter is this? The older or the younger?
Older.
Okay.
And the younger one's just nodding. She's just big upping. She's the spliff star to my older daughter's Busta Rhymes. She's like Olivia Rodrigo.
So
I'm like,
we've got a Jandek and a Busta Rhymes reference.
I'm having a coffee. Did you notice? Olivia Rodrigo. I'm like, yeah. She's like Sabrina Carpenter. I'm like, bet. She's like Charlie XCX. I'm like, that's my gal. Yeah. Chappell Roan. She's like, oh, and I like Casey Musgraves now. And I'm like, have I got an award show for you?
Was Casey Musgraves on the Grammys?
She was also there.
Good for her, man.
So this is the world. I'm okay marginally okay living with it. I did think it was kind of interesting, just like everything was, and there were some nice moments within it too, like the best new artists all got a moment to perform, which I feel like historically hasn't been the case. And I thought that was a nice celebration of people who might not otherwise have the showcase. That said, there is this like very intense creeping awareness of just how algorithms are taste now, you know? So I feel like a number of the nominees are the artists that you would play if you put in Amy Winehouse Radio on Spotify.
Oh,
Like,
who is
like Teddy Swims and Ray. And I'm like, oh, those are the songs that come next.
right?
And then get a billion streams.
Right.
You know, or there's this guy in a jumpsuit doing backflips. And I'm like, oh, okay, he's got
Wasn't
a little,
that guy named Bone or something like
it's like-
that?
yeah, it's like Brendan Boneson or something. You know, it's what I don't need to know. We're old now. I don't care. But I was like, oh, I see. Like, this is what happens when you just plug Imagine Dragons into the algorithm. And then I Google the dude and he's just like, the billion streamed signee to Imagine Dragons record label.
Oh, that's cool.
Like, oh, okay. So
Good for him,
everyone's
man.
making nice moves, you know? But then I was really glad, like, Charlie XCX performed, and her performance was like the only evidence. And by the way, if you thought I was weird about Twisters, wait till you hear me about pop stars. I'm like the only, like, hint of sex or danger or risk taking.
I saw that she had Julia Fox come through.
In music. Yeah, that's what I mean. And then she was also in an Uber Eats ad with Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay. And then there was an ad for like Snoop and Dre's gin and juice branded cocktails. And there was a little bit of like, everybody exit through the gift shop. Like, let's all try to cash in before the shit comes crashing down.
You were hoping for some integrity? Oh, you mean
I just mean like
everybody is getting
everybody's getting their bites in before the buffet closes. You know what I mean? Like Gaga's video debuted as a MasterCard commercial. I know these fights are over, but still it's a little bit jarring to me.
Yeah, I think we've probably the horses left the barn when it comes to people trying to make their money back from the record sales, right?
Did you hear Did you hear who won Best Rock Album?
I did not.
The Rolling Stones.
Oh, I saw that the Beatles were nominated. That was cool.
The Beatles got shut out. What's up, Grammys?
I wanted to ask you about one thing I did see when I was watching just some social media clips of it, which is that Taylor Swift is kind of like half Jack Nicholson at the Oscars, but also half Taylor Swift with 3 glasses of Chardonnay in her. Like, where she's every song that's being performed, she knows all the words.
She has to make herself the story, yeah.
Well, I don't even know. I'm not saying that.
Right.
I'm saying if you were an artist performing on stage and Taylor Swift was like, I don't know this one, wouldn't you be alarmed?
If she didn't know?
Yeah, if she was just like, this isn't my jam.
If she just sat stone-faced through Krungbin.
You know she loves some Karugbin. Yeah.
No, okay,
I don't even know how
fifth time's a charm.
Yeah.
That shit, I don't get that. That's like cigarettes after sex for me. That's just like, I'll just let the algo decide what my taste is. It's groovy.
I never do that, man. I'm always curating.
No, I know.
Yeah.
That's why you don't know how to pronounce that boring ass band's name.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Grammy as a spectacle, as a show, which sometimes we talk about, got things really right. Like it was at the crypt, the crypto.com.
It was, yeah.
Luka Doncic's home, or at least where he gets weighed before games. And concessions are great.
I think we're going to find out that Luka Doncic is capable of losing weight quite quickly right
Do you think? Now that he...
Yeah, my boy's about to hit the substance.
Do you think?
Yeah.
Big injectables are in his future?
I think Shadow insulting his conditioning is the #1 fastest route to getting a really pissed off, skinny Luka Doncic.
A skinny Slovenian.
Yeah, skinnier.
Yeah, but haven't you been reading all the coverage on the Athletic about dad bods?
No.
I double-clicked that. It was just like how Patrick Mahomes isn't super ripped and neither is Jokic, but when they've tested their like maneuverability, they are like elite in many categories.
And you put yourself in that category
1,000%.
with Mahomes and Jokic?
Well, in that I'm elite in surprising ways.
And not ripped, yeah.
We work on it.
Okay.
We do a lot of weight training. Jesus Christ, the West Coast offense over here.
Cortado is really doing the
It's
number
hitting.
on you.
No, but the show, they did a smart job by having it at the crypto.com arena and then having kind of the Golden Globes tables in front. So it did feel more intimate, even though it was a gigantic space. And you do see the reactions. I guess your mileage may vary on whether you want to see Taylor singing every song or getting really excited when the Kendrick posse to like does a sweeping motion, and they cut to her being like, yes, sweep. There was a moment when she did a champagne toast with Jay-Z, and Jay-Z did the thing that he does better than anyone else in the world, which is a okay face.
Yeah.
He's like, that's fine. None of this matters to me. I'm
That was
good.
the face he gave me when I heard Blueprint 2 in the studio.
That was the face he gave me when I did a phone interview with him about Fall Out Boy. Do you remember? We talked about this in the pod recently when I found the quotes where he's like, I went to Irving Plaza and the rock fans really showed up and went wild. And I was like, are you reading from a document right now, Sean? Anyway, it was a good show. I was very dubious when I read that they were going to like try to balance out the usual excitement of a Grammy Award show with a more somber tone because of the fires and fire recovery. But they actually turned it into Trevor Noah kind of turned into a charity fundraiser.
Celebration of LA, right?
And the fire chiefs who came out to give out Album of the Year were awesome. Like they're just cool folks. And are you happy that Beyonce's Album of the Year drought is finally over? I know that's been...
I'm glad something worked out for her. You know?
There we go.
I like Beyonce.
Yeah, I know.
If I didn't like Beyonce, I certainly wouldn't say it on this podcast.
Where would you? Was that a JMO take? When would you drop that one?
Not my cowboy.
Why not? Now's the time. Why not?
I wanted to ask if you had seen the trailer for the apparently final season of Righteous Gemstones, which is coming in March.
Oh, God, well, yeah, what a bomb that was.
I will miss this show.
Yeah,
I'm excited to see what Danny McBride does next. I hope that we continue to get a constant stream of Danny McBride shows for as long as he is interested in doing that. I think HBO probably would be like, go for it. If I had to guess.
He may be. We don't think of him when we think about like the traditional HBO tenured position.
I think he's like the new Larry David in some ways.
I think he's the new David Simon in some ways. Just like, just let us know and we'll put it on the air.
But yeah, I think Gemstones, you could do Gemstones forever. The interesting thing about Gemstones is there's a lot of plot in Gemstones.
It's very plot heavy,
and I think it has shaded, or at least a lot of the writing about Gemstones has been like, this is actually more of a family drama than it is a laugh out loud comedy. I would say it's probably both. But there is one joke in this trailer that made me laugh out loud so hard that I watched the entire thing again immediately, and that was when they're like, "You look just like Tom Hanks from that movie," and they're like, "You mean Philadelphia?" And he's like, "No, the one where he's by himself."
He keeps saying himself.
Yeah,
it's a great show.
Castaway. So I can't wait for that to come back. We don't really cover that week to week. I don't know. If
Maybe we should. You just said that it's a very plot heavy serialized show. Maybe we should cover it. As if it is.
We can.
How would we do that? Do you want to sketch it out now?
Just like what Easter eggs are there? I guess there is an Easter egg there. It's Jesus Christ.
It's the original Easter egg. What a surprise! Look who's back. Am I getting the story right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm waiting to see the resurrection of the Christ, Mel Gibson's next film, before I really make any final decisions about how that worked out.
How is he? Isn't he too busy now that he's an ambassador to Hollywood?
That came as a surprise to Mel Gibson.
It did.
Yeah. Didn't you see like they were like, you're the ambassador of Hollywood, and he was like, does that come with a residence?
It's
because
hard
his house had burned down
to surprise Mel Gibson these days. Although he didn't even seem surprised that ivermectin cured all of his friends' cancer.
Oh yeah, you watched that clip?
That's what I saw.
He was on Rogan talking about that.
But didn't he say he had many friends with stage 4 cancer?
Is that ivermectin in that Cortado cup right there?
Tastes like it. I feel horsey.
Want to talk about Severance?
Yeah, I feel like you set me up for failure here.
Today we're talking about Severance in Paradise.
Yeah.
Paradise is a new show on Hulu from Dan Fogelman, who did This Is Us, and stars Sterling K. Brown. We're going to talk about the first episode. I watched 2 of them.
I watched ahead a little bit.
Okay. Do you want to talk? Which one do you want to talk about first?
I feel like Severance is the newsier one, and I really would like to take some time with Paradise, if possible. Yeah. I should just preview, like, for people who don't go timestamp hunting, like, I'm very eager to talk to you about Paradise in a way that will spoil aspects of Paradise, but yet I really want people to listen to us talk about it.
Yes. Well, let's talk about Severance first, and then we'll do our little...
I just like to prime the pump a little bit.
I hear you. Yeah, like, if you want, you should go and get to the end of the Severance conversation and then just check out an episode of Paradise.
If you want more of the pop music opinions of 47-year-old men, just hit
including
back.
One guy who's like, I didn't watch.
Just hit back.
Yeah.
It's, What was the Succession thing? We hear you.
Yeah.
That's us.
We here for you. Who is Alive? The third episode of the second season of Severance. I thought maybe the most entertaining. Obviously, opened up a lot more in terms of mysteries. There's a superstructure to this show, like an undergirding of it that I'm like, oh, you could do this for a very long time if you wanted to. They could keep finding rooms in the Lumen building that have whole other universes, whole other people, like groups of people who are assigned to do some other thing, as they do in this episode with the goat farmers.
What are they called? Mammalian? Mammalians nurturable.
Yeah, and they are nursing all the goats in there. Goat herders, I guess. What'd you think of the episode?
Well, I want to circle back to your point about like things that could go on for a longer amount of time. Because I'm curious what you feel has legs, maybe 4 legs, in the case of the goats, and doesn't. I also want to shout out this episode directed by Ben Stiller, who directed the season premiere, not episode 2, and written by my good friend Wei Ning Yu, which is awesome. She's a great person, great writer. I really want to focus on 2 things.
Sometimes I imagine like whether our pod would be more popular if I started acting more like Pat McAfee about TV. Way to go, Wei Ning. Way to go. You ever see how like whenever anybody gets like an offensive coordinator job, they're just like, way to go, Brian Grubb. Like
I think that's
Brian Grubb,
I think that's cool.
Yeah.
That would be a good lane for us.
Yeah. I have to wear a tank top every episode.
That's mostly what I was thinking about. Wouldn't you have to stand a lot?
Yeah.
And then if you're ever freeze framed and put on the ESPN homepage, you would have to look a little bit bewildered in the freeze frame.
Like suspicious,
He's like,
but also
"Whoa."
Excited by what I was hearing.
It's more like someone is explaining something to you that you don't understand.
That's actually how I look when I watch Severance.
It's sometimes how you look when I say, hey, but wait, one more thing I want to talk about.
Yeah.
There's a little...
When I'm like, here's a dope way of getting out of this conversation.
There's a wrinkle... No, that's... You're just annoyed. There's a wrinkle of... There's like a little flavor of terror sometimes. There's 2 things that I want to hit for this episode first. There were just 2 things that I thought were really, really positive, and then there are things that I have questions about. One, Merritt Wever is on the show now. She is a reliable MVP, like off the bench MVP for a number of TV shows.
Wouldn't that be a 6th man?
She's a 6th man of the year.
Yeah, I mean, off the bench, usually we've never seen an MVP come off the bench.
What I wanted to do was thread the needle by making a sports analogy, because I'm still a Grantland guy.
Yeah.
But also, I didn't want to invalidate my previous claim that I was out on basketball. So I was trying to thread that needle.
I think you validated it.
Did I nail it? Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. She's always great. And it's always interesting to see what great actors can bring, especially in a guest role, where the degree of difficulty of this whole premise, right, that Dylan is going to be allowed a social visit with his Audi's spouse.
Yeah, like an emotionally conjugal visit.
Yes, and it's like a reward.
Because I looked it up. Conjugal does not explicitly mean sexual.
Is that what they told you when you visited someone in prison?
I went to Doge.com.
You just went, no, I imagine you showing up for your visit and the person's just like, just so to be clear.
This isn't necessarily.
I see that you're wearing a bathrobe, Chris. Thank you. And that was actually the prequel to Escape at Dannemora.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Shout out Ben Stiller. That is a tough thing to pull off because basically you're asking an actor to come in cold off the bench and be able to project familiarity and intimacy with a character who is not going to know them or a different version of them. That is high stakes shit. She was excellent and immediately grounded that scene and made me feel like this is someone who loves this man that's in front of her, but she doesn't recognize him.
Did you find, because like when she first appeared, I think her voice is heard the previous episode, right?
Yeah, it is.
When she first appeared, and I'd seen like, oh, Merritt Wever's on this season. I was kind of like, I was dubious. I was like, what, like, is this really his wife? Like, do you know what I mean?
Is
like,
like,
is this some sort of Lumen ploy to get Dylan to do that? And I think that's like a symptom of you never know exactly where you stand with Severance, for better or for worse. But obviously we see her in the home, like later. Yeah.
But that's actually something I'm glad you framed it that way because it is, Like the show wants to preserve mystery for as long as possible, and we spent maybe too much time talking about that delicate balancing act. But at a certain point, you have to put some cards down on the table and commit to this is the structure of what we're working within, and this is true, and then everything else can
Or you
radiate.
at least have to establish a baseline so that you can upend it. Like you can't keep flipping the table if there's no table, right?
I mean, you saw me in Atlantic City once, and I think that I maybe... But yes, generally that's true.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was a good sign of story and emotional commitment of the show. Of like, we've crafted this really cool scene, art directed the shit out of it. Of course, Mrs. Wong being creepy around the edges. The great joke about like the old time family photo. Do we live in what does he say? Like, do we live in a saloon or something? Like, that's awesome. But that scene is made so much more resonant because of exactly what you pointed out, that it is confirmed, right? And that this is a different relationship, and she keeps some things from him, and she's protective of him, and that line of like, I always rooting for you, respect you. I forget the language that she uses. I thought that was a great scene. I also really, really liked the end of the episode, because in the same spirit of like, let's be about something.
The Mark burning his retinas thing and...
Well, not that. Okay. Like, I thought I really appreciated this. The retina burning thing is writer's room cute. Like, that's a clever idea. It's cool. It's a good visual. I did think, and this is my pessimism coming into play, as it often does, like that was going to be like a 2-episode arc. Of
him trying to get this like
message,
remembering into the world.
And that like a Breaking Bad-esque element of the show's storytelling language, there was some Breaking Bad-esque flavor to the beginning of the episode, which we can circle back to, I thought, with Mrs. Cobell, or at least it hinted in that direction. That it was the kind of thing where it's like a writer's room dare. Like, we'll do this, and then someone's like, well, how does Innie get a message back? Well, that's next week's problem.
Gotcha.
I love that they establish it, and then they have someone show up being like, this is a terrible idea.
This is stupid, yeah.
Let's move this forward.
What's really a good idea is if I do unlicensed surgery on your brain.
100%. Some sort of like back room, the kind of surgery they do when you're leaving Dallas and going to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
That was an escalation. And it was, to my mind, like kind of an earlier escalation than I would have expected, because we remember what happened to Petey in season 1, the shape he was in when we meet him at the beginning of the series. So I was like, I felt much more optimistic and confident because of those storytelling choices. That it, like, you have to go, like, you at a certain point, you know. And I liked that those 2 planks of the episode suggested a desire for momentum. Like that, I those things are much more compelling to me than goats. And maybe that's a good way to go into the rest of the episode. And I'd love to know your temperature on it.
Yeah, I have a couple of things that I really enjoyed. As Brian Grubb mentioned on Vulture.
And he's the offensive coordinator of...
No, I think that's Ryan Grubb. Brian Grubb is a great blogger who writes for Vulture. And the diegetic use of the Stone Roses in so much as like she puts on a cassette.
Yes.
That plays the second Stone Roses album. Is that this lead single was Love Spreads, or was that was 10-Story Love Song the first?
That was the second single. God damn, that's a good song. That just hit me like James and the Giant Peach hits my guy in episode 1 of Paradise. Real heads know. Real doll heads know.
He basically teases out the idea that, like, are the Stone Roses a real band in the world of Severance?
Okay. It's a great question.
I will take it a step further and say that we're still monitoring like when this is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't remember now how much internet usage there's been in this show. I'm getting on the laptop to read about stuff. I can't remember, but I'm like,
do you want to see your experience mirrored in the show more?
No, I want to know like how close to Manchester we are.
Oh, wait. So is there? I gotta read. First of all, you gotta send me
all the cars in Severance are, 80s, 90s cars. Mm-hmm. Early aughts, maybe, I don't know, but like they're all these like little boxy Chryslers and hatchbacks and stuff like that. So there's this lack of
modernity,
on the outside world. Now, I still subscribe to the idea that I don't even know if the outside world isn't yet another layer of severing, because it just seems so odd.
Yeah. Yes. Well, it didn't occur to me that there would be like temporal displacement. Maybe, again, this is my pessimistic, skeptical brain approach
or
to the
that
show.
it's some sort of period piece.
It never occurred to me. I just have always thought that it was deeply stylized intentionally, and that there was a intentional surreality to the reality portion of the show that then may result in
Now, I may be doing the worst kind of watching of Severance as you could possibly do, which is 75% checking for stuff like that. Whereas I think you need to be all in and really dialing in. Like, I should know whether or not they've used Google, or just watch it as a TV show and just sort of enjoy it as an entertainment.
Do you think that if the Stone Roses exist, like, so you're saying Stone Roses exist, but Ian Brown's solo career hasn't happened yet?
No,
so
I don't even know, but all the other
never...
music, or for the most part, a lot of the other music in this show, like Eminence Front by The Who gets played.
Oh, that was the other thing I liked about the episode. Great episode ending.
But that's just a exterior needle drop.
It's not diegetic, as we say.
They're not putting in a CD of The Who.
Right.
She puts in a cassette that plays Love Spreads from the much maligned second Stone Roses album.
Second Coming.
Yeah. I'm just saying, I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means for Harmony. I don't know what it means for this world. I don't know what year it is.
And I don't want to give the impression that I'd rather talk about a different show, but President Wildcat in Paradise does find a Phil Collins CD, which is a little suspicious. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the Hulu series Paradise. Did I mention that?
Yeah.
But wait, but are you really watching Severance? 75-25 gotcha?
Unfortunately.
Are you enjoying that? So are you doing that because you are the more responsible one of us, which is true, and you're trying to keep track of the conversation? Are you doing it because you find that portion of the show more engaging, and that's what you're latching onto? Or do you just really want to know what's up with the Stone Roses? What is your...
I think it's because I find that portion of the show more engaging.
Okay.
I think so. Take something... I don't find the dialogue so dazzling on this show, or the... the momentum so propulsive, or there's not a thing on this show that I'm like, I've got my, like, I'm gripping my armrests. I'm so excited by what's happening. It's not that, I don't mean that as an insult. I think that it's actually engineered to encourage this kind of sleuthing, this kind of speculation.
Yeah.
It actually gives space to that, rather than you can't miss a thing. You have to just be constant. Like, there are shows where, like, industry and or whatever, I have to, like, be so locked in on this. I want to hear every, like, Rishi line from off screen.
Yeah, or like when Stellan Skarsgård, like, just does the wind up and you know he's going to unleash a speech. You're like,
right.
I will take pleasure
so
from
far
this.
That hasn't really been the case with Severance, which isn't a knock against Severance so much as I think it's how they are, like, it's no accident that Ben Stiller is responding to people's theories.
But
that Dan Erickson is like, that's an interesting theory, like, all that stuff. Like, that is part of what they're trying to pull off here.
Without question. And they know where their bread is buttered, and that is a smart play by them. But I will say, I don't give... I'm trying to be self-reflective on occasion, especially when highly caffeinated. I do feel like I haven't given...
And full of the music of Benson Bone.
Yeah. Just... I mean, it was really...
The first signee of Imagine Dragons is imprint.
I'm like, this is a song I heard at Gelson's versus, Teddy Swims, which I heard in Vaughn's.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. Great
There
stuff.
are two Americas.
We're doing... And I bestride them both like a colossus. I don't think I give Ben Stiller enough credit for one major thing, which is that he's a movie guy. Not just because he's in movies, but because that is his language. I think that is what he privileges and prioritizes in storytelling. And one of the reasons why I've had a hard time getting my arms around season 2 is that I've sort of had a amnesia moment, I think, about what it took for me to get my arms around season 1. And in season 1, I think I had a lot of the same, like, I'm not sure where this is going. I'm not sure if I'm interested in X, Y, or Z. And then the finale was like, let's take this entire mixing console and push everything up to 10. Or even 11. It felt a little
Yeah, and the first 2 episodes bring it back down to 5.
But the willingness to be like, the willingness to go all in early with the most interesting thing you could do in season 1, which is bring the innies out, is notable and important, I think, to adjusting to the storytelling rhythms of the show. And that they are, and it's just a reminder that, like, I don't think, despite the fact that the show may run for multiple seasons, I do think Stiller's heart is in pushing things forward, in having big big crescendo crises things. And I think that's the spirit that I was enjoying at the end of this episode. So that it maybe it's almost like the rhythm feels off because more veteran TV people have a more like familiar rhythm of give and take, of like we'll dole out some mystery and we'll give you some taste of a high, but then we'll pull back. Whereas I think the show is a little bit more in the weeds and loving the quirk that I find, and maybe that's movie-like too. Like quirk for an hour is great. Quirk for 8 hours is harder to swallow.
Yeah, it's like we talked about this, I think, with Hudsucker Proxy as an example, but Coen brothers are masters of mood and masters of vibe and atmosphere and tone, and I don't know if that tone can necessarily be stretched out, although Noah Hawley did a successful job taking parts of that tone and stretching it out across Fargo. I just think, there's certain things that film does better than television. I'll go through a couple of the other things that I really liked in this episode. The Natalie and Milchick scene with the portraits redone to show him as Keir was one of my favorite moments of the show so far, just because there was so much ambiguity, incredible performances in that scene, and also just like what the hell. And I honestly, it also introduces this whole idea of like what's race in this world, like what. Yeah. What is the sort of relationship that this guy has to this company?
And later when Cobell is like, he's not up for this.
Yeah.
It adds a little extra to that.
Yeah.
Sidney Cole Alexander plays Natalie. I think. Welcome presence.
Yeah.
Good performance.
Yeah.
What's Milchick's first name?
Seth.
It's said a couple times. Yeah. Go on.
I liked the goat discovery primarily because I thought it was notable that Gwendolyn Christie's character, Lorne, speaks with the kind of anachronistic vocabulary that I associated with Helena's father. So when he's like fetid moppet.
Yeah.
Weird thing to say to your daughter. Weird thing to say.
Well, listen, as a girl dad, things are said.
I
sometimes.
thought we don't abide such fripperies was similar time zone as that. What do you think?
Or timeline.
Yeah. What do you think of that?
I think you're
How long has she been down there?
I think you're on the case. I think that, again, that's the type of
thing that you're like, let me know what happens there.
Yeah, like I think it's the type of mystery that the show is overly indexed in the sense that like all of the nurturing mammalians all look like Game of Thrones extras, intentionally. But I'm like, okay, that whole scene for me is, I think the signal to noise ratio is off for me because for whatever else it accomplishes in mood and texture and oddity and surprise, all it takes to remove the threat or get what they want is Mark to say, just imagine you lost a goat. And they're all like, oh, okay, we'll help you.
Yeah.
Like that juice didn't seem worth the squeeze to me. But that is the atmosphere, and that is the...
And it's also about, like, making sure, like, that stuff has connective tissue to the rest of it. I thought they did a good job getting everybody on their own mission. This is a tried and true TV story engine thing where it's like, we have to split up and do stuff,
Were you up on the Hall Pass idea? Did you remember that introduction of that from the season premiere?
There's a lot of stuff from season 1 that I'm just like, I assume
this was introduced in the Keanu Reeves video.
Oh, right. Like we've given you Hall Passes.
Well, you've earned it.
Yeah.
We didn't see them earn it, but they have it.
Okay. The Turturro Irv stuff happening, I think, is something that's going to pay off later in the season. I've not watched ahead. I'm just saying right now, I find a bit confusing, like the dreams that the Audi is having and drawing.
And what it means.
And all the like sort of language about the export floor and the hallway and the elevator. And
I do really like Turturro's performance.
But he's just, this is sort of what this show is able to do. They throw something so complicated at you or something's kind of opaque as what he's dealing with. But he's such an incredible performer and has chosen this channel to be locked in on that you're kind of like, I don't know, this feels good watching this.
Yeah, he is more mannered and stylized like the show, but it's a similar thing that I was trying to articulate about Merritt Wever. I'm like, I believe you. I just believe you. So it doesn't matter what you're saying.
You want to talk about the ending? Because since that jazzed you up?
Before we get to the ending, I have to take your temperature on Patricia Arquette's performance, Mrs. Cobell. That, people have heard me ding various elements of the show. That's still the thing that I'm most outy on across the board. I was saying Breaking Badish, like her driving through the snow towards a place called like Neck Salt or Salt's Neck.
Great Neck, I think.
No, it was weirder than that because Great Neck would have implied
Salt Neck.
New York. Yeah.
Salt Neck, yeah.
Suggested some sort of backstory for the character that we're not going to get yet. But it to me, that is the best example of the show at its worst, or it's like it's the tendencies that I like least, which is just a lot of business of behaving a certain way that's extravagant and mysterious and driving to a place but not getting there and then coming back and demanding things and having leverage and cold harbor and then okay, but why? Like we need. No, I won't presume to speak for everyone, but as my version of an audience member of the show, I need a glimpse of Dylan with his kids, but the Mrs. Cobell, Mrs. Selvig version.
Yeah.
To ground it.
Right.
I need a table. Right now, there's no table.
There's just the Stone Roses.
Well, now you're making me like it. Do you have any kind of differing opinion about that, or is that when you choose to look at Wikipedia during those?
No, I thought that the scene where she gets basically spooked by Helena was effective.
That was her version of the keep going.
Yeah,
Karen
in Goodfellas.
Karen, where are you going?
But there's certain things in this episode and in this show that I feel a little cut and paste. Not cut and paste like maybe they happened in a different point and it got moved up or moved back. And I have no knowledge of that. There's something odd about her whole arc so far this season. And she, to me,
intentionally
is
odd,
the one that I'm like, what's her shrine? What's her deal? She's not supposed to talk to Mark. She talks to Mark. She seems to be like an independent rogue state in this whole system that's supposed to be us versus them. And I guess that's a cool thing. She's like the thing that can change the temperature on the show. But on the other hand, I'm like, why is she driving? Why is she doing this? Why is she doing that?
There's also not to just grab a title from the headlines, but there's something low-key conclave-y about the show in that there's a version of it that is a religious show. And there's different levels of belief, right? And different definitions of heresy. And the idea that Mrs. Cobell is, at least, again, none of us know what she's doing, which I think long term is a problem, but I don't think that that's going to be left unresolved for long. But she appears to be more of a true believer than even the heir to the great man himself, right? In terms of
apparently,
Helena. Yes.
Yeah.
And that she deems her successor or her acolyte, Milchick, as not worthy. But again, what are they worshiping and what are they doing?
Yeah.
And the question for the season, for the people who are super invested in the plot of the show, the stakes of the season are self-evident. For the people who are mystery hunters like you, I think the stakes are like
part-time.
Well, you're an amateur sleuth.
I'm sort of a Uber driver of mystery hunting.
An Uber? Like
I work my own hours.
Gig economy.
Yeah.
That the return on investment for the season is like how deep this goes or how interesting the connections are. I guess the meta viewer version of this is what ratio do they ultimately choose for revealing things, grounding things, structuring things, and shout out leftovers, letting the mystery be. And that is a judgment that one cannot make till the end of the season. But of course, I will not stop making these judgments. I'm sorry. We do a podcast twice weekly.
Good episode though. Cool episode.
Best episode of the season so far.
Looking forward to next week. Now let's talk about a show that is a lot like Severance.
Yeah, let's go.
If you've had a lobotomy.
Yo. I'm so excited to talk about Paradise on Hulu.
I had seen chatter about goddamn, Paradise. I didn't know you had that as part of your game. And I was like, let's check out an episode. I asked Andy to watch one. I had watched it, and then I was like, you're gonna have to watch this. And I got the classic 15 minutes in Andy text of
No, I've having fun. Yeah. I was never not gonna finish it. You were worried about me.
You were like, did ChatGPT write this show a couple of minutes into it, right?
No, I said my first take on Paradise is that the show was written by ChatGPT on Klonopin.
Yes. And then I was like, you have to finish it though. And there's a reason for that. So if you have not watched Paradise, please watch it and then come listen to us.
Yes.
The first episode.
Yes. And or, and I mean this sincerely, if you are one of the, from what I gather anecdotally, many people who
just listen to us talk about shows that they
Landman,
don't watch.
specifically.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to talk about Landman a lot in relation to Paradise. If you are someone who's just like, what's my favorite thing that I never get right, which is the happy for you or sorry that happened, I ain't reading all that. Like if that is your engagement with this podcast, especially with Landman, do us a solid and just stick around.
Okay.
Because I think this is a similarly rich text for us to unpack. I was not spoiled. I knew nothing about what the show is about, which was great. I didn't even know the premise. But so deep is my admiration and affection for you that I would just fired it up.
Here is the premise.
Give us the log line, but this is the spoiler-free log line.
This is just the premise.
Yeah, let's go.
Dan Fogelman, parentheses, This Is Us, new drama about a Secret Service agent guarding an ex-president.
And not just new drama with Sterling K. Brown, who was the breakout Emmy Award-winning star of This Is Us.
Yes.
Sterling, eager to work with Dan again. He's a producer on the show as well. And I guess I will say the one thing that I heard was that he wanted to do something different than This Is Us.
I think he did.
And I think we should commend that.
The show also stars James Marsden as said ex-president.
He's awesome.
Julianne Nicholson as the most powerful woman in the world.
Unclear, thought that was his wife, but now figured it out.
Larry Hagman as the president's father.
Gerald McRaney. Larry Hagman from Beyond the Grave. They've done incredible things with AI.
I need the coffee.
Do you want to finish this for me?
Gerald McRaney. I was like, that's Larry Hagman.
Can I also just give, like in the spirit of what I just said about the previous episode of Severance, big shout out to John Beavers, Briar Patch's own. He plays Billy. So awesome.
Yeah.
The nicest guy, great guy. So happy to see him
another Secret Service agent. And Cassidy Freeman, who people may know as Jesse Gemstones' wife on Righteous Gemstones. She plays the current, the ex-wife of the ex-president.
Yes. The ex-first lady.
You start the first episode, and it frankly just looks like a network drama. It is taking place in an anonymous sort of world where Sterling K. Brown's character, who's a Secret Service agent, is able to easily like sidle up to the ex-president's house. It looks like they're in California somewhere.
Well, it's also just like Anytown, Americaville, USA.
Anytime, Americaville, USA. But you're like, oh, this is like a backlot ABC show.
It also does feel like, as like to do it in SAT question form, like as MasterCard is to Lady Gaga, the Ford Mustang is to Paradise, because the one recurring feature, before you have time to be like, is that the White House? You're just like, that is a rakish tilt to the parking job of that Ford.
Now, I'm going to get confused a couple of times because as is the way with Dan Fogelman, but especially with Paradise, there are like 37 nesting dolls of flashbacks happening on 14 different timelines here.
Yeah, we got 5 years ago before we even get going.
But it's like 5 years ago, but then it's like 12 years ago, but then it's like 6 weeks ago and 5 hours ago.
And everyone looks the same.
Yeah, and everybody looks the same. So basically what happens at the beginning of this episode is you're just alerted to the fact that Sterling K. Brown was James Marsden's head security Secret Service guard during his presidency, during the second term of his presidency. James Marsden was an incredibly young, incredibly successful president, young, and he's going to be in his early 50s as he is out of the presidency.
He likes to drink. He likes to smoke.
Sterling K. Brown has followed Marsden out of the White House to his presidency life.
Which we are led to believe is just a life of leisure and vacationing.
Sitting around, like
going on a pool
sitting
floaty.
on a pool floaty and drinking all day. And okay, I get it. I'm curious. And I thought that the mystery or whatever is going to be how he got this scar, why his wife isn't lying next to him, even though he's got these two kids.
And my mystery, if I may contribute, is why does he go fucking mental when his child is reading James and the Giant Peach? I'm like, was he shot by a fruit?
Yeah.
Like, what is his trauma here? I was like, oh, or are they living in a world with talking bugs? What's the relevance here?
So you continue to go through the first episode. It seems a little off, but this is kind of a testament to like, if you're watching, say, like FBI, CIA on CBS, you're like, that's kind of what this looks like visually. So I didn't necessarily think anything was too amiss. I thought that the mysteries were going to be like how he sort of is wound up as this person versus when he started with the president.
Why is he humorless now when he was humorless then?
Exactly.
Is your question. Right.
Not a lot to note about the president. I think his name is Cal.
His nickname is Wildcat.
Wildcat.
Marston, just give him his flowers.
Chewing it up, and he's making
great.
a lot of Kentucky basketball references, which I appreciated, although that is called out at a certain point. As the show goes on, there are these mentions of something happening in Colorado.
Yes, there's some tumult in his presidency.
Yes, there is an assassination attempt in the past that we were witness to.
So presumably in the Paradise timeline, you were at the Vista seeing what? Can you put a Avengers Endgame?
Odyssey.
Oh, the Odyssey.
The Odyssey.
It's the future.
Yada yada. It keeps going forward, and you eventually realize. This is revealed in the first scene of the show, but in multiple flashbacks, that this ex-president, Cal, has been murdered in his ex-presidency life.
Yes, and Special Agent Xavier Collins is weirdly chill about it.
Well, not chill, but he immediately is like, I can't trust anyone before we call it in. Like, we have to sort of do an assessment of the grounds.
And this assessment is so important. Billy needs to leave his me time on the toilet.
His ivory throne,
to attend to him.
His marble throne, yeah.
I mean, I don't really want to know, but I was really hung up on the fact that Billy's like, I cannot be there. And then he's like, you need to be here. And he's like, I'll be there. And I'm like, what shortcuts were taken, Billy,
for him to be able to get it together?
To get you there.
It is revealed that...
You doing it? Do it.
Yeah.
Rip the Band-Aid.
This
Fucking
show
do it.
Is taking place, the present time is taking place in a mountain underground community that was salvaged in the wake of what appears to be some sort of nuclear apocalypse above ground.
It's a silo!
It's a silo.
Yeah.
And it's essentially the Truman Show. The reason why it looks so weird is
because it is.
Is because it is. And he was still the president, right? Of this underground community.
I think the implication is that his presidency, he was president when the world ended, cutting a little close to home.
Yeah.
And thus then stayed president in fake mountain presidency.
Yes. So they are underground in a Colorado mountain.
Where everything is like meticulously
it's like
curated.
Disney, yeah. Which is actually good synergy for Hulu. They got the Imagineers on that.
Great point.
Yeah.
Great point. Should we end there?
There's some creepy dystopian stuff where everybody has to pay for everything using their like Fitbit that they have.
Did that give you Gattaca vibes?
A little bit. And yeah, the first episode ends with one of those hugest what the fuck twists. And the second episode, I'll just say, keeps them coming.
Yeah.
The amount of flashbacks
it's so wild.
Is so crazy in the show. I don't even but I have to admit, I was completely like entertained and gripped. It's really stupid, but also such an amazing piece of engineering because you're just like, people will get bored after 7 minutes. We need to then change the entire reality of the show every 10 minutes.
But also, every minor character's decision-making needs to be fleshed out with a very involved, folksy, colloquial flashback where they just...
It's like taking a gravity bong hit of Lost. It's like every episode of like Lost was like, here's a character's flashback. That happens 6 times in one episode of Paradise.
In one act.
Yeah. Nobody is not connected to one another. It's like, oh, these 2 Secret Service agents they touched hands.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, it's also just that is the broadcast thing that we are out of the habit of, which is like when Sterling K. Brown wakes up in the first scene and the camera lingers on the pillow next to him and we're like, oh, someone used to be there.
Yeah. A head used to lay on that pillow.
Just like when the people fire up this podcast after the Super Bowl and there's just an empty chair next to you.
Because you're going to be dead.
I'll be at the parade.
One way or the other. Yeah.
One way or another. Yeah, so the reason I wanted to talk about this show in the framing of Landman is because both are batshit crazy and have a lot of opportunities for us to have a good time.
Mm-hmm.
The other reason is, maybe I'm only coming down from my ivory tower occasionally, so this is happening a lot, and thus my opinion is not special or invalidated. But when we were talking about Landman, I was like, the best thing going for the show, other than the way it convinced me that my electric car is foolishness, is that we are really seeing what it means for one person to be unnoted, to just do whatever
you don't
he
think
wants.
Fogelman got any notes?
I
think they were like, no notes. Because this is so exactly what we wanted.
Okay, let me start from like a place of somewhat reality, and then we can, like the show itself, then we can kind of unpack. The one constant in every single notes call that I've been on for scripts that I have written, or development that I've had, or general meetings that I've gone on in the last year plus, it's consistent. It's if you don't hook the reader. Well, they say audience, but they really mean the reader in terms of the script. In the first scene, in the first 3 to 5 pages, it's a no. The attention economy is so competitive right now that basically it's the note that people used to say, like people were bemoaning 20 years ago with movies. Like if you can't sell it on the poster, we won't greenlight the movie. So that is where we are with scripts. So the fact that Fogelman wrote this incredibly packed but weirdly narcotized and sleepy hour of television in which the reason for it being a show is revealed in the last second and got it to air struck me as noteworthy.
Okay.
Because it's not just that it's kind of like lulling you into a false sense of security that this is normal. It's that when Sterling K. Brown delivers his like, what did he say to President Cal before, is this last conversation?
Like, I wish you were dead, right?
Yeah, but you remember that. What maybe you don't remember is that for 6 minutes before that, he's like, my wife and I took a lot of time planning the names of our children.
Oh, yeah, that's
Presley
right.
was determined because she's from Memphis, something I mentioned to you in a previous scene. But we were really puzzled about what we should name our son.
Yeah.
Should it be Jack? Should it be Dave? Should it be Dabe with a B and just be creative? David?
Dave.
Call him Dabe. We didn't know what to name him until one day we walked into
Name him after Brian Dable.
bookstore. And it's OC, Ryan Grubb. And in the bookstore, we saw a book. Maybe you've heard of it, James and the Giant Peach. And that's when we knew. And on the couch, I was like, you named your son Giant Peach? Because where's the zag here, buddy? Like, what are you telling us? And it's like, we named him James. And then I read that Roald Dahl considered naming it James and the Giant Cherry. I was like, are you fucking high right now? Are mushrooms so mainstreamed and microdosing so mainstreamed that Dan Fogelman and the covering exec were both peaking at the same time, and they were like, this is fascinating.
Cherries.
Tell me more about Roald Dahl's relationship to squishy fruit.
Stone fruits are in season. And you know what? They're grown right here in America.
And maybe if you squint, you could be like, oh, Dan, you're telling us something because James is inside of a fruit dome.
Yeah.
Much like these characters are. And it's foreshadowing something that we're going to reveal in 6 minutes anyway. But really, you're just like, this is a really long speech. Just like when Sterling K. Brown's character Xavier meets the president for the first time. And the president's like, want a drink? No, you don't. Want a drink? That's a test. Let me tell you about being president. You laugh a lot, X-Man. I'm like, what is happening? Why is this scene still going?
Yeah, I always love scenes where it seems to be a job interview and the person being interviewed gives nothing, and the interviewer is like, I love the cut of your jib.
You got everything that I want, X-Man. You've given me nothing. I would like to now spend the rest of my life with you.
So
that's the fact that this is why I think this is a fascinating text that Dan Fogelman was just like, no one believed in me when, he wrote Crazy Stupid Love and got a big spec paycheck for that. And then This Is Us. NBC was high on it, but they weren't like, this is going to save broadcast television for 6 or 7 years. Or that like a show built on what happened to Dad could extend that mystery for multiple years.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying he hasn't earned the right, but it was shocking to so soon after covering Landman and being like, we may never see an uncut gem like this again, getting another one.
Yeah.
It's an insane television show.
So we still don't know what happened to the world.
No.
We do not know yet, at least after 2 episodes, I don't think, why Julianne Nicholson's Sinatra was her code name character, who seems to be Elon, but a woman, has like...
Boy, just fucking blew my mind.
But is like...
Crazy.
Running the government, essentially. But man, like, I kind of want to find out.
Do you think it's a feature or a bug that the world, like the actual world is still functioning world? Like the flashbacks to Earth Prime, where you're just watching movies of the Vista, not aware of the looming extinction level event? That world also seems to only have less than the population of Toledo in it. When like,
Well, that exactly the population of Toledo.
no, that's later.
Okay.
I'm just saying like the scenes when it's presumably still the world before they go into the mountain.
Yes.
And like there's the media scrum and there's like 6 reporters and a president.
It's kind of funny, yeah.
And then Sterling K. Brown takes a bullet for him, and then
It's
he
also like
wakes
you
up.
only had 6 reporters. You can pat these guys down.
You could probably run him through a metal detector, but then when he wakes up in the hospital, it's just alone in a room with the president.
Yeah.
So maybe there's some other dominoes to fall. And
Ooh, so now you're watching Paradise with the same magnifying glass that I watched Severance.
I'm watching, like, I do have a physical reaction when I see writing that I'm just like, I cannot believe they let go. Because generally I want to be like, you know, I'm a player's coach. You know what I mean? Like, I want writers to be able to write what they want and flex a little bit and pirouette and do donuts on people's narrative lawns with clever dialogue or whatever. But shows like this make me be like, you know, the exec probably had some points. Like,
Yeah.
like a red pencil wouldn't have been that out of place here for some of it. Because there's also just again, I think this is Fogelman's style. I think this worked for This Is Us. But like in the second episode, early in the second episode, and I don't think this is a spoiler if you've only watched the first, but there is a Julianne Nicholson flashback.
Yes. Multiple
And
ones.
she introduces herself the way characters do in shit like this, where she's like,
I'm a CEO of a tech company that just sold its first patent or whatever.
no,
Yeah.
but she's also like, thank you for coming here under great secrecy and sorry about the shitty coffee. And everyone's like, ha ha ha. And then on a plane, she's like, my husband's a bad flyer. We met at a bar 6 years ago. And then I almost wish they flash back to that. And they do.
They do.
Yeah, this is just like,
It's good stuff, man.
do you think Sterling K. Brown is a great actor and he's a great television lead? Generally, he's one of those people. I'm like always happy to see him, always bringing some gravitas to this. When he got his sides or he saw the script and he was just like, do you think that he circled the day when he would be giving the James and the Giant Peach monologue and he was just like, this is my
The thing
St.
is that
Swithin's Day?
I feel like this is only the first layer of how crazy the show is going to get.
That's so fun for us.
I know.
We need a paradise in our life.
We'll do intermittent check-ins on this.
Intermittent. This is a paradise podcast now.
Thanks to Greenwald. Thanks to Kaya. Thanks to CT. We'll be back on Thursday, probably talking. I don't know if we're going to delay our release like pit time, but you know, we'll have some stuff to chat about.
We love the pit. There's other stuff to check out coming soon. And well, we shouldn't leave it to the end of this podcast, but we hope we see some people tonight.
Yeah, at the Mina.
At the live Mina Kimes event. I think maybe last minute tickets might
I think
be
there's
available.
still some available. It's at the
I think we've
Belasco, so if
raised-
you can hear this, come on through.
I think a lot of great money has been raised for needy charities. We're looking forward to it.
Talk to you guys on Thursday.